Check in with Richard Blumenthal. He's trying to hold on to the lead in a fiery race for U.S. Senate. Also, Linda McMahon is hot on his trail, cutting his lead by 24 points since January with months to keep going. The question is, will that be enough? And a horrifying case of neglect has Senator Rob Kane calling for an investigation into the Department of Children and Families. Hi, you're watching The Real Story. I'm Lori Perez. A very big show today as we visit with two of the players in the hottest race in Connecticut, one of the most watched in the country, the race for the U.S. Senate seat now held by Senator Chris Dodd. We begin with Attorney General Richard Blumenthal, who has the Democratic endorsement and, as of the latest Quinnipiac University poll, the lead over his closest opponent, Linda McMahon. Mr. Blumenthal, thanks for being here today.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
Let's talk about the current made perhaps a surprising endorsement this week of Rob Simmons in the Republican primary, saying that he's a better bet politically and agenda-wise for Republicans in the August 10th primary. Tell me what your reaction is to that, and would you rather face Rob Simmons or Linda McMahon?
Well, I'm not going to vote in the Republican primary.
Right.
And I'm going to leave it to the Republican voters to decide who their nominee is going to be. And I have spent these last 20 years, not just the last 20 or 3 or 4 months, going around Connecticut, listening to people, regardless of party, about what they think the real problems are affecting people, not the politicians, but the people. And that will be my guide in framing my conversation with the people of Connecticut as we go forward, whoever the nominee is for the Republican Party.
Now, have the priorities of those people that you've talked to over the past 20 years, have they changed, or what's the priority now?
People are struggling. People are hurting. And what I hear as I go around literally to every nook and cranny of the state of Connecticut is that folks are having a hard time making ends meet, staying in their homes, providing for their families, whether it comes to health care or their mortgages or their jobs. And so I've made some very specific proposals for how we can provide more capital, for example, to small businesses. I really can't believe that we have provided tens of billions of dollars in bailouts to the Wall Street banks, bailouts that I opposed, and we can't provide what small businesses need to expand and grow and provide more jobs and opportunities for themselves and our Connecticut people. And what I find overwhelmingly, most importantly as I go around, is that folks want someone to stand up and fight for them in Washington, because plainly Washington isn't listening. It continues to provide hidden subsidies and tax breaks to the pharmaceutical drug companies, $200 billion in taxpayers' money, to the oil and gas interests, literally $30 to $40 billion, and fails to provide for the middle class, and the middle class is struggling.
Well, you talked about helping out small businesses. Some people argue that extending the Bush tax cuts will help small businesses, because it supports the growth of small businesses, and we ought to be able to make some cuts in discretionary spending that would help the deficit.
And we should extend those tax cuts. No question that we should extend them for the middle class, not for the wealthiest, but for the middle class, and we should do more in terms of deficit cutting, because our national debt is spiraling out of control. Spending has to be slashed. Why not cut the $200 billion that we've given to the pharmaceutical drug companies in the sweetheart deal that I opposed, the Obama administration, and I criticized it, went along with it, or the oil and gas subsidies, or waste and fraud. And I have fought the pharmaceutical drug companies and won to make sure that Connecticut is reimbursed for overcharging and ripoffs. I have fought the oil and gas interests when they wanted to put those liquefied natural gas facilities and pipelines in Long Island Sound. I know how to get results and win. And people in Connecticut want someone who will be effective with that kind of experience to fight out of control spending so that we can provide for the middle class and also enable our economy to grow.
You're talking about cutting spending. I read today that the single largest cause of the deficit is the cost of the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. Let me ask you, turning to that, would you have voted for the latest round of war funding? And if so, I mean, how long would you be willing to back the strategy that we have right now?
I would insist very strictly on the deadlines and the timetables we have set. We must continue the war on terror. And our policies in Afghanistan and Iraq involve, at least in Afghanistan, a temporary buildup in strength, but an exit strategy. And I would insist on that exit strategy. I would have voted for this funding because I believe strongly that we need to provide the troops in the field, as well as our intelligence forces, the resources that they need. I have a personal stake in this issue because my own son is in the United States Marine Corps Reserve as a second lieutenant and may well be deployed there later this year. But I believe that we must have that exit strategy and stick to those guidelines, and I would insist on them as a United States Senator.
You know, you talked about your son. You know, I haven't really talked to you one-on-one since the whole misspeaking about Vietnam debacle. I mean, if you could tell me honestly, what did you think about how that all came out and that it seemingly persists in certain ads?
I'm proud of my own service in the United States Marine Corps Reserve. I was honorably discharged as a sergeant. I made a mistake on a very limited number of occasions, a small number, compared to the literally hundreds of times I spoke about my military service. And I regret those mistakes. I take full responsibility for them. They were unintentional, but that's no excuse. Most important, I'm going to continue to champion the causes of veteran, a program called No Veteran Left Behind, and I will continue to fight for veterans.
Okay, this is kind of rapid fire here, so I'm going to change subjects again. Arizona's new immigration law went into effect this week. A federal judge did block certain provisions of it, but much of it went into effect. Tell me why you didn't join other AGs in supporting it and where you stand on immigration reform.
On immigration reform, I believe strongly that there must be a comprehensive federal solution. The lawsuit against Arizona's law isn't any more a solution than the Arizona law itself, because there needs to be stronger enforcement at the borders. There needs to be stronger enforcement within our country against illegal hiring of illegal immigrants, and we need to take stronger steps comprehensively and federally, and there is no substitute for that kind of action. The lawsuit is no substitute for that action.
So do you think that the judge's ruling from a legal standpoint was appropriate this week?
We'll have to see ultimately what the United States Supreme Court says. There are certainly constitutional issues with this law because there should be, and the Constitution says there must be, federal solutions to certain problems, and therefore the states may be preempted. I'm a strong advocate of states' rights on many, many issues, such as protecting consumers and enforcing our laws regarding mortgage lending, which we have done on Countrywide and AmeriQuest to protect consumers. But I believe there must be a federal reform, and it should be soon.
Okay. Linda McMahon is right now running a web ad in which she says that you took PAC money when she says that you said you wouldn't. You dispute that. But tell me why you're taking it now, because I know that you said it was inappropriate to take it when you were running for AG. Why is that different now?
I have taken money from political action committees. I have an opponent who could spend $50 million. I want to make this contest an election, not an auction. And I can't fight it with one arm tied behind my back. As Attorney General, I appeared in court. I had certain responsibilities, and they are different now in the position that I'm seeking. And I am determined that we will not be outworked. We may be outspent, but I've conducted a grassroots campaign. Thousands of people have given to it, and the political action committees are only one small slice.
Well, we only have a few more seconds, but she's made up 24 points in the last 6 months. She says she's willing to spend another $30 million. I mean, you think you can hold on to it for the next 4 months?
I have something money can't buy. For 20 years, I've shown the people of Connecticut in my actions, not my words, what my character is, what I'm made of. I've fought for them. I've stood up for them. I've never backed away from a fight, and they know me. And they know, and they've taken my measure. And I have said that I'm sorry when I've made mistakes. I'm not perfect, but I've never backed down from a fight, and I'm going to do as much as I can to fight for them and stand up for them in Washington, D.C.
All right. Thank you very much. We wish you good luck. Thanks for spending time with us. Up next, Linda McMahon is Blumenthal's most aggressive challenger, but she still has to make it past two GOP candidates. We talk about the rush now to the primary.